Michael Jaco. Is that pronounced correctly?
That's
Jaco?
perfect.
All
That's it.
right. You are an extraordinary human being, not just a Navy SEAL, but a bodybuilder. You survived the CIA in Afghanistan and elsewhere. And you and I have bonded, I think, in a way. And I certainly respect everything about you. Now, the purpose of this interview is to introduce my guys, my world, to you, and to drive them to your books and to your website. So
Mhm.
let's start with, you weren't born a SEAL. So
Right.
where were you born and how did you get from there to being a SEAL?
So I was born in Columbia, South Carolina, 1960. So I'm 60 years old now, and so it was a good upbringing. I love growing up in Columbia. Uh, I went back there after the SEAL teams for a little piece of time, but I was actually sickly as a kid and had had asthma, all kind of crazy stuff.
Your Forrest Gump moment.
Yeah, exactly. And so yeah, just like Forrest Gump, I just started running. I was like, screw this. And I'd seen somewhere that an athlete had, started running, to overcome their asthma. And I was like, I'm going to do that too. So I did. And as a kid, I remember leaving school and running home, and, you probably think that's crazy, but, I overcame asthma doing that. And at some point, I think about 9 years old, because I had success with like really focusing my mind like that, I decided never to get sick again. So I haven't been sick since I was 9 years old. And so the power of the mind, really came in early for me. And it was the same thing with wanting to be a Navy SEAL. When I was 5 years old, I saw the movie Frogmen. I remember I just had my tonsils taken out, and my mom bought a brand new black and white TV. And I remember watching that movie, mesmerized. I was like, I'm going to do that when I grow up. So, I did. And of course, I like James Bond. I read all of Ian Fleming's books. I saw all the James Bond movies. And then I became, went into the CIA. So everything that
Well,
I,
let me point out to you that the most important skill in spying, apart from listening, is typing. Because it's 4 hours of typing for every hour of agent meeting. And with terrorists, you have to do your own transcript of the tape. I said, he said. But all right, so there are James Bonds out there. I'm not one of them. So you went on through high school, and then what led you to the Navy?
well, it was, that desire to become a Navy SEAL. So when I was 18, I hadn't even finished high school. I was a senior in high school. And I was like, I just got out of lifeguarding and, had fun lifeguarding. I was like, I love that lifestyle, being in the sun, swimming all day, and, hanging out with the girls. And, that's didn't do that in the SEAL teams, of course, but eventually
Oh, baloney. Come on. I mean, how about Rogue Warrior and Beefeater Gin? And,
hey,
I
you Marines get some hot girls too. So
well, I grew up. I earned my master's in drinking as a Marine Corps infantry officer, and then I earned my PhD as a CIA officer with no limit on his budget.
oh
Now,
yeah,
of course, I'm trying to be a decent human being and take care
exactly,
of my
exactly.
body. Uh,
Yeah, the CIA had some good alcohol everywhere
well,
in the world.
it's we have what we call Vespers, which is your afternoon bonding. But anyway, so go on. So you joined the Navy, and did they give you a guarantee, or did you have to first go in some other capacity?
Yeah, I had to first go in some other capacity. So they didn't have a guarantee back then for the SEAL teams. They do now, which is awesome. But for me, you had to prove yourself. You had to go into the fleet. So I was like, if I'm going to the fleet, I'm going to be a hard hat diver. And so that's kind of the route that I took. I became, did the test, qualified for hard hat dive training. Did that at Washington Navy Yard, the old Washington Navy Yard. Did the great big spun copper helmet. I had that on. It was like, that was back when you had to be hardcore, to be a hard hat diver. Walking up the ladder without all that gear on. It's about 190 pounds. Not everybody could do it. I remember we had a female on our class, and she was amazing. She did everything. Did everything that we did. PTs, runs, her book smarts were better than everybody else. But when it came to like walking up that ladder with all that weight, just couldn't do it,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate. But, that separated the men from the boys, so to speak.
And the men from the women. I mean, you got to say
Yeah.
it. I'm huge on women in leadership
I
positions.
love women in
Women
leadership.
are compassionate. They
Yeah,
have more nuanced judgment and so forth. And this whole idea of trying to force women to be men and men to be women is
I
just
agree.
crap.
I
So,
absolutely
okay,
agree.
so you were a hard hat driver. Were there
Yeah.
any moments there where you were afraid of dying?
Not as a hard hat diver. No, I never had that. I remember one time there was a guy, we were diving on these reefs, and I was on a sub rescue boat, and we'd go out and we'd like anchor and do our, qualification dives. And I remember one of our diving officer, in fact, uh, somehow he was on the bottom, crawling around and getting shells for his granddaughter or something. And he hit his valve, his air valve, and popped it too far, and he blew up. So when you get too much air in that suit, your arms go out, you have no control, and there's like a spit cock where you can pull the air, but it's not enough. If you hit that valve too much, you're coming to the surface. And we heard him hit the bottom of the ship, boom, and we're pulling him in as fast as we can. I was there, and we cut him out of his suit, literally cut him out of his suit, pulled him out, stuck him in the chamber, put him down, no problems. So
That's awesome. I mean, one of the things I do love about the military is they've got standard operating procedures for everything.
yeah.
In fact, I wrote the standard operating procedure for a CIA clandestine field station. They didn't have one then, and they still don't have one today. It's unbelievable. This is loosey goosey shit. So you became a SEAL for 24 years.
Yeah.
And obviously you passed the training course. So what were some of the highlights?
Yeah, one of the highlights was the training course itself, where they had the Hell Week, and I was a little skinny guy, it's like 175 pounds, even though I was a fullback and football player in high school and everything. I was big for my age at the time, but coming to the SEAL teams, all that running, slimmed me down. I had like maybe 4 or 5% body fat, and when I hit the water, it was like chilly. I was like shaking all the time.
Did you know that Swedish SEALs are allowed to be like 15 to 20 pounds overweight precisely because of the cold water?
Absolutely. Yeah, it makes sense. But for us, all that running, and it was a lot of running, you were really lean. And so hitting that water, that was the thing that really separated a lot of people, why a lot of people quit. So there was no question I was going to quit. I would die before I quit. And that's kind of the attitude you really have to take in that training.
Can you game your entry date so that you go through in the summer? I mean, in the Marine Corps, for example, you absolutely want to do OCS in the summer, not the winter.
Yeah, and that's the way it is when we have the Naval Academy guys. When they come in the summer, because that's their break anyway. But they don't really get the full impact. But we always had the Naval Academy guys. Usually, 99% of the time they made it through. So I was cold. I had to overcome the cold. I remember one time they saw how much of shit, and you can never escape the SEAL trainers, because I was one, and I would see where people's weaknesses were.
Oh, so you got to go back to
work
train SEALs. That's a real compliment.
Oh yeah, it was great. It was because I was like, we're all just like Superman. That's why we made it through. But when I came back, I'm like, it's a mental thing, because I would look at guys and go, oh, that guy's going to crush it. He'd be the first to quit because he'd never been pushed before in his life like you are in that training. For me, everything was a push, so I had to overcome and overcome and overcome and overcome. The water was my thing, where I just I was shaking. They put me aside in the water by myself, and they were watching, and I was like, I'm not going to quit. This is not going to defeat me. And my body just went still, no more shaking. And from that point on, I get in the water here in Lake Tahoe in the winter, no problem. So it's a mental thing, we overcome that.
In your 24 years, I mean, and the CIA, they train you, but it's kind of like it's the same 6 months that a Fairfax County cop gets. You don't actually become trained until you've done 1 or 2 tours, and you've had, if you're lucky, you haven't had shitheads as bosses. You've had some good bosses, and I had some good bosses. So at what point in your SEAL career did you feel like you had made that transformation in soul terms?
I think it happened when I was at SEAL Team 6. So SEAL Team 6 is also, you have to go through a screening process, and they go through extreme training, far more than what we did in BUDS. I felt
they're like the Ranger version of the SEALs,
right? And super, tier 1, like Delta, and so when I made it through that training, I went through combat in Panama, and that was kind of like, you learn to, like, be in that combat zone and be in this different state of consciousness, and that was kind of like one of those turning points for me as well. And then moving on a little bit further in my career, I started the SEAL Team's first hand-to-hand program, and that was a turning point for my consciousness as well. Reaching into these deep states of consciousness, where we would have like up to 20 people attack us at once, and using neck breaks and throat chops and all kinds of different stuff. Not, of course, not all the way, but simulating them to the point where I can take your neck and take to the point you're like, oh yeah, if you went a little bit further, you would break my neck. So that's what our training was. So 20 guys at a time would attack you. You learn the techniques for moving in that kind of environment. You have to move into a different state of consciousness, and that wide angle vision, hitting the alpha brainwave states and so forth, was what really.
This may sound like a weird question, but I knew the original Earth Battalion guy, the lieutenant colonel, and the movie Men Who Stare at Goats. I absolutely loved it because there's a lot of real stuff there. I mean, these guys are walking on hot coals, and they are achieving a state of consciousness. Now, within the let's say the SEALs are like the elite of the elite. Within the SEALs, is there an elite of the elite that have achieved this mind consciousness state?
Yeah. So, I mean, not everybody achieves it. Not everybody stays a Navy SEAL. They come in, do their 3 or 4 years, and they're out. There are, a handful of guys like myself that go on and do, like, really super advanced stuff, like the remote viewing that I eventually would start to get into.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. I absolutely do want to talk about that. So before we finish up with the SEALs, I want to ask you about SEAL officers. Yeah. Now, I had a flight guarantee for the Marine Corps, and I failed the depth perception test. And my whole life changed as a result, because being a Marine Corps infantry officer led me to being a clandestine case officer, which led to other things. What's different about a SEAL officer, particularly since in the teams you're all equals in a manner of speaking? So what is it about a SEAL officer? Like, I knew Tom Steffens, Admiral Tom Steffens, who was at the time the top Navy SEAL at SOCOM, a very decent human being. What is it about Navy SEAL officers that makes them stand out?
The same thing, the training, the teamwork. So I think a lot of officers, they're taught you're separate from your men, but most of the SEAL officers, they know that line, of course, but most of them are, integrate extremely well in it, and also carry out, their duties as in the leadership roles, and in the paperwork and all that kind of stuff too, as you know.
Paperwork, yes.
Yeah.
As a young lieutenant, I figured out that my job was to protect my men from the other officers.
And you were probably, everyone loved you because that's
well, I don't know about that. I was not the greatest officer. I mean, in fact, a true story, my battalion landing team, the Chief Warrant Officer 4, a field grade equivalent, quit 2 weeks before we were going afloat. And I had just done an Article 32 investigation, which was a lot of typing. And the colonel said, what the hell am I going to do? And he said, you've got one Marine who can read and write. And that was me. So I immediately became a staff officer for 1,500 men as a brown bar. Okay. So it was interesting. So what stands out for you? I mean, I absolutely think we need the SEALs. We need special forces. I think we need a 450 ship Navy. I don't think we need 1,000 military bases all over the world. At a strategic level, President Trump has just hit a hole in one. He's thinking about rebuilding the U.S. military. What does Micheal tell him to think about?
Yeah, I like your ideas about having more special forces. And this is, there's been a lot of people that have looked at that, saying that special forces are the future. And I remember seeing Alvin and I think Heidi Toffler.
My friends, Alvin was my friend. He wrote a chapter, The Future.
I love that man. I love their work. Love their work. Yeah. So he even talked about how special forces are perfect. And this was a long time ago. We're perfectly positioned for the future of warfare. And I was like, wow, that's incredible.
Let me make a quick point, because my vision for special forces is eyes on the ground. In other words, most special forces should never fire a shot. They should actually be observing and interacting and harnessing.
Right. And as you know, if you're on top of that, you will stop a lot of stuff out very quickly, very quickly. And I've seen that. I've seen really good case officers in CIA do some amazing things with their intel and stop a lot of stuff from happening all over the world. So
No, I agree. I mean, I envision a future in which we've got a 24-man team in every single country, and they're all invisible, and all they're there to do is watch.
Right. Now I loved when I was in the CIA working with former military officers. They were the best, I thought, because they knew how to focus. And like you, I love your like, all right, tell me. You're like, boom, boom, boom. Tell me what you got. And I would hear that from those guys, and they were like, send it. I'm like, boom, oh, I love it. So I send them the information, and boom, they're off and running. I'm like, God, this
No,
is
we need to restore universal service. We need to have everybody should be serving in some way, because part of the problem right now is CIA changed its psychological profile. And it's hiring snowflakes,
right. Oh yeah.
and
Wow.
it's got too many losers.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. Now, I want to ask you, before we move into remote viewing, do you have any thoughts on your experience in the various wars? And in my experience, we go to war based on lies. A lot of guys get killed over lies, and we also create a lot of illegal immigrants. We reopened the drug crop in Afghanistan, which the Taliban had shut down.
Yep. I saw that happening.
This is not cool.
No.
Is there anything that comes to mind on whether or not we should be withdrawing from Afghanistan, which everyone is opposing, but I think we should be out of there? What do you think?
I think like you're talking about, we still have, that presence there, but it has to be with guys that are extremely well trained. If you get just one knucklehead comes in there, destroys a lot of work. I've seen that over time. And I remember coming into a lot of places in Afghanistan and doing some amazing work, and then leaving, and then that base would fall apart. It'd been built up to be an amazing.
It's about relationships.
Yeah,
it's absolutely about relationships.
Absolutely, the relationships are amazing, and one of the reasons why it really took off is like that one case officer had a military background, really good one, and so once he left, things kind of fell apart. They send in people that really shouldn't be there. And when we saw that attack on the base where, all those, the contractors and the
Oh, look, they sent in an unqualified woman analyst to be
So
chief of base. She was an idiot.
Right.
And by the way, she had been warned in advance that the guy might be a double
my buddy warned her. My buddy that was intuitive, that he read my book, and we always had great discussions. He became directly hired by the CIA. I was a contractor directly hired by the CIA. I always stay there because there's like a lot of those guys seem to get lobotomies when they became direct hire. So I was like, just stayed back. But anyway, they were telling these guys what they were going to do. Scotty basically told her, hey, we need to search this guy outside the base. And she's like, no, bring him in. And then she's like, well, at least let us search him before that you have contact with him. And she's like, okay. And then she like ran up to like, oh, we have a cake for you. And then boom.
Ollie North had a cake, who is not the best Marine ever. Okay, so let's go into remote viewing, which I believe in. I mean, I've talked to people. I've been deeply impressed. And I personally think humans used to be telepathic, or how do you say that? Telepathic? Yeah, telepathic. Mm-hmm. And I think we've actually dumbed our species down over time. Absolutely. And it's been done deliberately. So take us into the remote viewing and telepathy space.
So the remote viewing is very simple. We make it harder. I think a lot of us do that already in a certain capacity. A lot of my clients that I work with, I teach them within a few sessions how to remote view, and they do amazing stuff with it right from the get-go, and then eventually end up teaching other people. So it's
so you offer this as a funded service. People can come to you and get training in consciousness raising and remote viewing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have lots of courses for all this stuff. And so I was teaching guys, when I was overseas, how to do all this stuff. And some guys, it's a right brain, kind of focus thing. If you're not anywhere into the right brain, you're very analytical, very left brain. It's going to be difficult for you. But anyone that has any kind of imagination can use their imagination, it works, period. It
So,
works.
so remote viewing is really more of a soul, heart, spirit kind of thing rather than a rational calculation thing.
Absolutely. But you still need the rational mind to decipher what you get. So I'll go out and look at stuff. Sometimes it'll be amazing, what I get back. Like I remember being in Pakistan in Lahore, and there were no bombings whatsoever. It hadn't been attacks. And I told everybody this one road on this certain day, at a certain time, there was going to be an attack, because I'd already had experience using this in Iraq and Afghanistan. And they're like, okay, Mike, and then, there was a big boom there. And then the next, I said, wow, that's crazy. What's next? And I said, a week from now, there's going to be an attack. And I see two guys in a truck, white truck. And I see another attack that's going to be a little bit further away, but this one's going to happen kind of close to the consulate where we're at. And they're like, oh shit, well, we'll make sure we're not in consulate around 9:20, which I said. And 9:19 actually is when the big boom happened. They hit the FBI building and killed over 100 people. It was very close to the consulate. We got CCT from it, closed circuit TV. Basically, a little while later, about maybe an hour later, showed two guys in a white truck crashing through the gate, and then boom. So, sometimes this remote viewing is like clear cut and dry, times, distance, all that kind of stuff. I used to remote view before my teams would go out.
Yeah, and one of the things we've learned the hard way is most security officers are dumbasses. They don't understand what a car bomb can do. I mean, I've been around car bombs, and they're devastating. So you need to have a perimeter. I mean, I was actually one of the guys that read the Long Commission report on the Beirut bombing. Okay, our generals were telling our Marines they could not be locked and loaded, and so they weren't able to fire on the truck as it came barreling at them. And so Tim Geithner, I forget what Tim Garrity, I think was his name. He should have been a general, but because of the Beirut bombing, and he actually did serve at CIA in special assignments over there, and I think so did Nick Pratt, one of my favorite colonels who should have been a general also. So without violating any of your existing secrecy agreements, to what extent is remote viewing appreciated and harnessed on behalf of the American public?
I would say very, very low, very, very low. I would teach guys, but it was like, it was like just somebody that wanted to learn, it was not a program. I didn't learn it from a program. I went off, and did it on my own with a Apache Indian type of, American Indian spirituality.
I'm huge on both oral history and indigenous knowledge. I mean, it's closer to the earth. It's closer to the cosmos.
Right.
So Mike Flynn, let's say, is going to be restored director of Central Intelligence. Mm-hmm. So what do you tell him is needed in the way of a national remote viewing program?
So, I mean, there's plenty of remote viewers out there. It's a very simple process. Like I said, anyone can do it, and it can be used to actually look at some of your, people you're getting into.
So if I come to you, I can say I need 120 remote viewers in my office on Monday. Mm-hmm. You can find them.
No, not that quick. So okay. I could probably canvass the people that I put through training, and I get some people that would be like jumping.
Let me ask you a variation of this question. To what extent do you see remote viewing being practiced by other countries?
I think a lot of countries do it, because I've looked at North Korea, and I know that there's counter remote viewers, so they can feel you coming in. So I know how to cloak myself. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a lot of back and forth. I've learned this over time.
Well, I think they're also dueling supercomputers. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I don't understand, but I'm just opening my mind to the possibilities. Now, let's talk about your books. And you've written what, 2 books or 3?
I've actually written 3. The third one is on my website.
Okay, so let's talk about your first book, and then we'll talk about your. So you had Intuitive Warrior. Which was the first book?
That's Intuitive Warrior.
So talk to us about that.
Okay, so that was great. I had a Archangel Michael experience when I was in Iraq, and that way that happened was they were mortaring the base every night, and then one night I woke up and I'm like floating above what I believe my body is. And I'm like, oh, I'm having an out of body experience. I believe this is what I want. There's something I wanted for a long time. And I always heard that you just look down at your body and then you get that connection, you're having a very, very, lucid out of body experience. So I looked down and my body was like destroyed. It was in pieces. It had been blown to pieces. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm dead, And I was like, that's a bummer because I'm really starting to use my skills in helping. I feel like I really helped humanity. And then I felt this presence and I look up and there's Archangel Michael, wings spread. He's looking at me. I feel this love energy. I meet his eyes, love energy comes into my body, lights up every one of my cells. I go back in time, back in my body, I sit up and then there's a huge explosion. And the next night, Spectre shows up and starts hammering those guys because they knew that was pretty close. So yeah, from that point on, I just started having these amazing experiences. And eventually I wrote about them, the remote viewing, remote influencing. So I can go into a place over time. I learned how to go into a place and send out what I call a love bubble. So this love bubble is an energy field, basically in a site. And I did this in Pakistan many times, where I would come into a town that was being attacked because after those attacks that I talked about, Pakistan had one of the worst terrorist attacks in that year than any other country, even Iraq. So it was out of control. And of course, we came in and helped counter that a little bit. Thank you. But
Talk about the love bubble. This is really
yeah,
interesting.
it's amazing. So I would send out this love bubble, and there would be no attacks because it had happened to me in other instances where I was in a car getting ready to get hit, and I sent out the love bubble, and then a car came behind us and it got hit, and I was like, oh, there must be something to this, And over time, I developed it to a point where I would come into a town and send it out. I would leave that town, go to let's say Peshawar from Lahore, and Peshawar, 9 days straight of terrorist attacks, and then I get there, I send out the love bubble, no attacks. The guys that were there, all the CEOs are like, I don't know why we're not going to attack. All our intel is telling us we're going to get attacked, but and some of the guys were like looking at me like, I said, don't tell them, so I'm not ready for this
I want to reinforce my belief in your what you're saying here, because what I have seen is documented evidence that prayers and meditation do have an impact.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's what it is, And
there's a cosmic ecology that basically advances love or advances fear. I mean, fear kind of perpetuates itself also. So
Absolutely.
tell us about your book. I mean, people buy this book, and what do they get when they buy this book?
Yeah, they see, from my experiences, how I tapped into intuition, and they get motivated. I've had, hundreds of thousands of people that have read this book over the last 10 years, 11 years now. And it does really well. When I go to events, it sells out. When I have books, I don't have books anymore, so I'm getting a new publisher. But it's available on Kindle, so you can get it on Kindle right now. It's a lot of places.
Yeah, I got to say, there are a lot of people that don't like Amazon, but Amazon has been very good to me in terms of publishing. I mean, my books, Reinventing National Security, Reinventing Intelligence, Reinventing Engineering, I no longer deal with storage and inventory and shipping.
Exactly. Me either.
It's
In the
really
beginning, that's the way I was, having to have inventory. It's, you get worked on all that stuff. So I like Amazon,
So
on-demand printing.
So let's go to your next book, which you've discovered over 100 past lifetimes, and I'm totally open to that being very real. I mean, I'm publishing a set of 5 books on satanic pedophilia, and this stuff goes back millions of years. And I do believe that there is reincarnation and so forth. So talk to us about your new book, The Awakening of a Warrior and the 100 Past Lifetimes.
Yeah, I think I have like 20 something past lifetimes in there. But I have discovered 100. One of the ones that was just absolutely amazing was when I was in, I just came into Libya after the bombing, and actually went there and recovered some stuff from some of my buddies that I just seen like weeks before, unfortunately. So while I was there, I had this, because I'd already discovered a bunch of my past lifetimes that had psychics tell me past lifetimes. I work with a guy that helped me find one of my lifetimes during the Civil War as Louis Armistead. And I look like Louis Armistead. all of the places where Louis Armistead was shot when he hit the top of the anvil, the very top point where during the Battle of Gettysburg where he was wounded. I had problems there. And once I discovered that lifetime, all of those problems went away. So that's one of the powerful things about connecting with lifetimes. You start to learn, what's troubling you and how to overcome stuff. So when I was in Libya, I started hearing that you're Richard III, and I rarely get the whisper, but this was one of those times, I guess it didn't really need to come through. And so I'm like, Richard III, he was evil, no way. So I'm looking at it and like, no, I can't believe I was evil, And so it's like, look at the castles, because I was always a castle guy as a little boy. I remember being on castle walls. I'm like, why am I poor? I remember being rich and having castles. So I looked at the castles because I'm starting to have these intuitive abilities to look at stuff and have the connection. So I looked at the castles and I'm like, oh, yeah, I have memories there. So I kept denying it. And so I go home. I'm living in Sedona at the time, very spiritual place. And I'm working on a treadmill. And I kind of like, fix my house up so it's like a vortex. My house is a vortex. So I'm in there and I all of a sudden feel this sword going into my back. And I'm like, oh, and I hit the floor. And then I feel like 11 other swords go, and one of them was a humiliation one up the rear end, So I was like, oh, okay, I was Richard III. And then all the pain went away. I'm like, damn, that was weird. And then the next day they found Richard III's body, which had been missing for like 500 years. Wow. And I was like, ooh, that's a tell.
My mind is completely open, and
Yeah.
and I'm privileged to know people like you and Penny Kelly and John Peterson from the Arlington Institute. There's clearly so much that we haven't been told.
Oh, yeah.
Now, where would you like to go as we kind of move toward closure? Obviously, we want people to go to your website. And what is that website?
It's unleashingintuition.com and or Unleashing Intuition Secrets. You'll find it that way as well. And have all my courses in there. The books are in there. Of course, you can get you can get 2 of those books on Amazon. So there's the different places where you can find me. I do have a YouTube channel where you can find me as well, Micheal Jaco. I think that if going forward, the more we get out of the fear mind state, the more we go into the love mind state, the vibration that opens up the intuitive mind. You are incredible with that. We had a lot of comments from the ladies who were like 2, divine masculine men. Good to see.
Do I have grandmother groupies?
That's awesome. Yeah, that's beautiful.
It makes me feel good.
I love you. Yeah.
Listen, I didn't get to you on the body part. Now, you laughed when you saw the thumbnail that I put up.
Oh, yeah, that was good.
You're there looking studly, and I say, that's your CIA disguise, and you've got a fetching young woman there, and I say, that's me in my CIA disguise. So tell us about the bodybuilding. When did you actually get to the point where you could win competitions?
This was amazing. I worked out so hard in the SEAL teams. I'm just hammering my body. I'm like, why can't I ever get that 6-pack? And why can't I have a ripped, chest and all that kind of stuff and the perfect biceps and like Arnold? And I was like, dang. So, when you want something, it's usually if you're open to it, it'll come to you. So this bodybuilding couple, I owned a condo in Virginia Beach when I was at 6, and this bodybuilding couple moved in right across from me in a condo. And I got to be really good friends with them. And so I was asking them, how do you guys get lean? I've been trying to get lean my whole life. It was like, well, you got to get rid of milk products. You got to get rid of bread. You got to get rid of all blah, 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 And I'm like,
so it's all about the food.
It's 50% of that leaning process is food. Yeah. So you have to have the right diet. Once I did that, within 2 weeks, I started getting lean. I had 6-pack abs that I never had before.
So do you teach people about this diet in your books or your website?
Yeah, my website has that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's really a simple process. I have one that has done really well. So 21 days, lose 20 pounds, where I teach basically this foundational diet, and a lot of people done really well with it. I was the model for it. I was like, look, I'm like 20 pounds overweight, and I'm going to lose these 20 pounds in the next 21 days, and every day I'm showing people how it goes down, 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 down. And then,
So obviously you got to give up booze, you got to give up sugar.
yeah, absolutely.
And what else do you have to give up?
Well, it depends on, if you're leaning down. Now, if you're leaning down for, bodybuilding contest, I recommend you get rid of all bread products, all pasta. A lot of people are like, pizza? No, I gotta have my pizza. Well, you want
No,
to get
you
super
got to
lean.
get rid
It's
of
up to
that
you.
stuff. Yeah.
Cheeses, milk products, all that stuff has to go. And then you have to have every 2 hours is what I do is I have a protein meal. And that protein meal is, by the end of the day, I weigh, 200 plus pounds. By the end of the day, I'm taking in 200 plus grams of protein. And a lot of that is from, protein shakes. So I do protein shakes from real low carbohydrate, real low fat. So that's what you're basically doing. High protein, low carb, low fat, and that leans you down. And on the off season, like right now, I'm a big fatty, but compared to what I normally am, because I eat what I want, pretty much. I don't eat stupid.
Now,
But
Scott McKay is obsessive about his diet, and
oh yeah, have you seen his pictures when he was a bodybuilder?
No.
Oh, have him show you. He was the guy that I wish I looked like. He
Really? Well,
crushed.
he's coming on the tour with us,
Yeah,
and
ask him about those
got his own
pictures.
bus.
He's impressive. Yeah, we talked
That's
about that. It's
that's
good.
really that's really something. So I take it that nothing in a supermarket qualifies for your diet.
Oh yeah, of course it does. Yeah, I mean they got vegetables and lean meats and so forth.
But none of the processed foods.
No, definitely. I mean that's no one should eat at any time processed food. So it's up to you whether you want to like have a clean diet and have a lean lifestyle. And I'm 60, like we talked about. I've always been super healthy. I do unbelievable athletic events all the time. Before this COVID thing, I did a bodybuilding contest and won it. And 2 weeks later, I did a beast competition where you like run 13 miles in the mountains and do all these obstacles and stuff like that. So, and then a little while later, I got in my kayak and rode around Lake Tahoe. It took me 24 hours nonstop. I did 24 hours around
Man,
the lake.
that's hard on the muscles.
Oh yeah, but you work out, you train. I had protein shakes the whole time, and it was good.
Talk to us about vitamins. Do you take any vitamins or supplements on a daily basis?
Oh yeah, every day. I do a really good it actually has a telomere support where it basically gives you your telomeres as we age start to unravel. And it's like being on a printer. You're hitting the printer, the same copy over and over again. It gets weaker and weaker and weaker. That's what happens to telomeres, is start to unravel. It's basically the gene code and stuff. It basically reforms that. I do a supplement that forms that.
What's that product name?
Isogenics. So isogenesis from isogenics. So I use that, and there's one where it has there's a telomere support where you can just get that, and there's one that has a multivitamin, multi-mineral, and it's a AM PM little packet, and I've been using that. Now when I left the CIA, when I was in the SEAL teams, I had my kneecap shattered, and over time, because I wasn't able to, being on all these trips, wasn't really able to work out that well. It started to debilitate, and I couldn't run anymore. So that's one of the reasons why I had to leave, because you couldn't pass the physical anymore. So I was like, oh, my running days are over. So I started using this isogenesis, and within a few months, I was running again. So the stuff is amazing, and it's been proven. They have lots of stuff on the Isogenic site where they talk about that stuff. So yeah, I love that stuff. Been using it for several years now, and that.
What about vitamins?
Diet.
C and D and zinc and calcium. Do you do any kind of vitamin supplements?
Yeah, I mean that has it in it, but I do sometimes, especially now, I make sure I'm doing 5,000 international units of D3 every day, and that keep away the bugs, keep away the COVID, whatever they got going on out there. And I do so other stuff. I lots of lean, just the lean, fresh vegetables every day.
No, I'm going to send people. I'm going to go to your website, and I'm going to send people to your website. So I want to close out with: you're the doctor, America's the patient. How are we doing?
We're doing pretty good. I think a lot of people are waking up, and your tour is going to help that. That's going to be amazing. More of us are speaking out. We are the news really right now. People are coming to us in numbers that blow away the newscasters right now. So I think that's beautiful. I, got the push probably like you to really get out and start to share this information because I'm a patriot and hope, should have said that. But, I believe, in the world. I'm a citizen of the world, like Plato said, and,
Oh
you and
man,
I
you're everything they hate. You're white, you're a stud, and you're a patriot.
and eventually that's going to turn around. Anyone that's, that in that, no matter what your color, no matter what your race or, your, uh,
No, we all bleed red, but I mean,
yeah,
what's
absolutely.
happening now is I think people are starting to realize just how much bullshit has been pushed out
I
in
agree.
the
Yeah,
schools
finally.
and
And
into the.
our old organization, had that had the Mockingbird, and I've seen that. I've been.
Oh yeah, mind control is very real, but I'll tell you something. It turns out that NASA, rather than the CIA, is
Really?
much worse.
Wow.
The, when we did our peace treaty with Germans, we didn't actually win World War II. We
Absolutely.
negotiated a peace treaty. Hitler and his guys exfiltrated. All the
Right.
gold and shit was moved, and
Yep.
we gave them CIA and the National Aeronautics and Security Administration, which
Ah.
is actually it's a military agency. It's
Mm.
also an intelligence agency. Most people don't realize this.
I didn't realize that either. That's
So
amazing.
NASA, Kathy O'Brien is one of the people that I put into the movie that I'm making on satanic pedophilia.
Excellent. Love it.
And
Love it.
yeah, that book
Love
of hers, Transformation. So what does Michael read when he's reading books by other people?
I love history. I mean, I'm always reading history throughout all the ages. A lot of that, will spark my past life memories, or I'll have a past life memory, and I'll like, okay, I need to focus on this time frame. A lot of history. I love, science. If I hadn't been a Navy SEAL, I probably would have been a marine biologist. So I love science, love quantum physics, love all that stuff. When I was I excelled in science in high school, and I was like, that was my passion. But my bigger passion was becoming a Navy SEAL, so that's kind of the route I took. And in my whole career, officers are like, you need to go become an officer. I was like, no, I want to operate as long as I can. So I love to operate. So, I love the officer community. I love the senior enlisted community that I was involved with for over half my career. And it was just absolutely amazing experience.
Listen,
And I
let me
think that
let me ask you
everyone,
about
I
that.
agree with you. I think everyone should have some experience in that. It'll be
Now,
good.
let me ask you about this. I mean, it used to be that, particularly in special forces, we would recruit senior enlisted from foreign countries,
Mm,
East Germany, Poland, so forth. And our special operations community was like the United Nations, which I don't like the United Nations, but the
no.
point is it's very multinational and so forth. I have the impression now that SOCOM has really gone down. I mean, we're actually taking boots out of boot camp in the special forces,
Ooh,
in the army,
yeah.
which is
Oh, yeah.
insane. I mean, you should not go to special forces until you've proven yourself at least as a sergeant. Um, and so, what's your sense of the health of the special operations community today?
Man, it's not good, unfortunately. And I've talked to guys, especially in the army, that are like they're very not happy. And they said it's been
Yeah,
a
the army is the
slow, a
most
slow
woke,
squeeze for
politically
like 20
correct.
years. They've been squeezing the special forces guys, and we saw, with Trump had to come to the aid of one of the SEAL operators. That's unbelievable. You
Well,
know,
I actually liked it that Trump raised special operations to
heck
be
yeah,
the equivalent of a
that's
separate branch.
it
Uh,
has to be. It has to be. It needs to be. And the reason and that the fact that he did that, helps because it was always a pissing contest between who's going to be in charge and who's going to be the senior people. And I saw those fights, over the years, and the really good officers that were able to win those were like, always my heroes. It's a tough battle. It's been a battle for a long time, and I think that's going to be that's going to help to accelerate the process of having better people, rise to the top now.
That's awesome. I really have enjoyed this. I've been engrossed in this conversation.
Excellent.
Any parting words for my audience that I want to go have visit your website and buy your books?
Yeah, the number one thing that I tell everyone is to stay in that love vibration. That love vibration. A lot of people are like, I can't I can't love my enemy. It's like, yeah, when I learned to do that, when I was getting mortared every night, and I was like, I still love those guys, but if I get a shot at them, they're dead. I still have that warrior mentality, but once I really started going through these love energy vibrations, then there were no more attacks, like I talked about. So it's a very, very powerful force once you start to tap into it, and it'll absolutely change your life. It's changed my life in every aspect. Relationships. I make better investment decisions. My business has exploded this year like never before. So once I really focus myself into the intuitive side, which is a love vibration, women are very, very good at that. So that's why, you and I have always liked working with women and support women that, that are successfully minded and want to, rise above the fray, because it's tough for women to get ahead. But with people that support them, not so much. I always saw that supporting women was good for everyone if they were good. It's just like a team. If we're working
Yeah,
together,
no,
I'm
I
going to
agree
support
that,
whatever you're good at. If you're not good at something, I'm gonna cover you, and you'll do
yeah,
the same
no,
for
the
me.
women that try to be men are losers, and the men
No,
that
that
want to be women
doesn't
are
work,
losers.
unfortunately.
I've done well, I think, on truth and reconciliation, but you're an inspiration to me. So let's close out by just saying, damn, you're deep and you're broad, and I'm impressed.
All right, thank you. It's been a great honor, speaking with you. I've admired you for a long time.
Listen, I'm a punk next to you, but together, I think we can do some great things going forward. God bless you,
Absolutely.
Michael. It's been a
God bless you
privilege
too,
for me to
and
talk
your
to you.
audience too. Thank you.
All right, bye bye.
Bye bye.